Hello and welcome to my channel Kaliyuga Dharma. Before stepping into the Itihasas and Puranas, it is vital to address the question of what timelines we're talking about with respect to ourselves and the Itihasas and Puranas in question. Often, Sanatana Dharmic Puranas and Itihasas are called mythology and myths, as if they are some fairy tale events that spring out of human imagination and never even happened to begin with. And there are those who begin narrations of these scripturally recorded events with the words once upon a time or a long time ago. Any rationally thinking human would ask himself or herself, okay, when was this time and how long ago is a long time ago? Although we follow the Gregorian Christian calendar today throughout the world, Sanatana Dharma has had its own calendar with its own standards to measure time and its own precise measurements of time completely unrelated to any Western ways of doing the same thing. We will explore this today in today's episode as a precursor of moving into Mahabharata and the timeline in which Mahabharata itself happens. Material creation or matter is innately and intimately bound with time. As explained in the first chapters of the Vishnu Purana, time itself in Sanatana Dharma is not a mere relative reference between events and states of change, but rather a form of the Almighty Shriman Narayana himself. It is not a form like the ones we normally worship in temples like Sri Rama or Sri Krishna. It is an invisible, all-encompassing, infinitely existing form of His that binds all creations in the material realm of existence, thus heralding all changes therein with its movement or passage. All entities in created existential realms or samsara exist and change states of being, exhibiting behaviors and attributes perceivable by us with the passage of time or Kala Swarupa, as the scriptures call this form of Shriman Narayana. Time manifests at all levels of existential reality, and Sanatana Dharma has had its own units of timekeeping with an elaborate science explaining the same metaphysical concepts scripturally. Like Einstein once quoted in his theory of general relativity that the passage of time can be felt differently across different cosmic bodies depending on the material density of that body, Sanatana Dharmic sages have millennia ago explained in the Mahabharata, Bhagavata Purana, and many other such shastras that across various lokas or cosmic realms with their own planetary bodies, the passage of time can be felt differently by observers. Thus we see how time itself is a form of Bhagavan and how its movement and perceptibility across various lokas is determined only by him. Thereby, it also lets us know, as a constant reminder, only too well as to how much we are as mortals at the mercy of Almighty Shriman Narayana at all points of time, given that time itself is his all-encompassing form. Now, Vedic timekeeping was not just a scientific way of timekeeping, but it was one that never has changed with time. As time runs in parallel with material space, ergo proving to us that the Vedic people have always had an understanding of space-time continuum, the terms used for the most fundamental time units are similar to the terms used for the most fundamental units of matter as well. We have the Anu and Paramanu, which are fundamental units of matter to determine the atomicity of matter. And we have the Trasarenu, again a fundamental unit of matter as well, uses the same terminology. These three form the most rudimentary units of Vedic timekeeping. We can't exactly translate as to in modern seconds and minutes of the modern day how many seconds or how many microseconds or nanoseconds make an Anu. We just know that Anu is something in the same ballpark of a nanosecond or a picosecond. Now, Rasarenu is the length of time as described by the Bhagavata Purana for a ray of sunlight to enter through a slit in the window and reach a surface. That is what Bhagavata Purana describes Trasarenu as. 3 Trasarenus gives 1 Truti. 3 Trasarenus gives 1 Truti, and 100 Trutis amounts to a unit of time called Vedhas. 3 Vedas amounts to a unit of time called Lava. 3 Lavas amounts to a unit of time called Nimesha. 3 Nimeshas amounts to a unit of time called Kshana. Now Kshana in common day parlance is used as a way of saying second. Kshana is not a second. It's just become a common term used especially by speakers of Sanskritic languages in the Indian subcontinent to refer to a momentary window of time. It's not equal to the modern day second, as we know the 1 second unit. 5 Kshanas equals a Kashta. 15 Kashtas equals a Laghu. 15 Laghus amounts to a Nadika. 2 Nadikas make a Muhurta, and 6 or 7 Nadikas gives rise to 1 Prahara, and 1 Prahara is a quarter, that is 25% of a day or a night period. Only now we are coming to a perceptible unit of time. Okay, a Prahara equals a quarter of a day or a night. In Sanatana Dharma, we must always remember that day is separate, night is separate. The Sanskrit word for the combination of a day-night cycle is Ahar Nisham. Ahar referring to day and Nisha referring to night. But all these are just units with strange names. What do they mean at a perceivable level? How do we perceive the lengths of time for these units? Now this involves a unique Vedic measurement apparatus and system described in the Bhagavata Purana, which I will be speaking of. The Vedic cesium clock, so to speak, was an ancient device which brought these units to a more perceivable plane of visualization. How we use the atomic cesium clock with the cesium isotope to measure how much 1 second amounts to, the Vedic people had their own way of doing the same thing. And remember, when I say Vedic people, I'm not talking about an existing I'm not talking about an extinct civilization. I'm talking very much about an existing civilization, the civilization called Hinduism today, because we still do follow the Vedas. So what was this instrument like? According to the Bhagavata Purana, it comprised of a copper pot weighing 8 tolas with a capacity of 1 prastha of water. What is a prastha is, unfortunately, a lot of these measurements have been lost to us in time. We can't say exactly what's a prastha any longer. It's not very clearly known. This pot is to be bored with a hole at the bottom using a gold needle, and the needle in turn weighs 4 mashas, and it should be as long as 4 finger breadths, 4 adult finger breadths. This pot is then to be left on water, on a tub of water, and the time in which it takes to fill up entirely and get fully submerged is equal to 1 Nadika. And as mentioned above, 1 Prahara, that is 6 or 7 Nadikas, is 1 quarter of a day or a night of a human being on earth. That is, the time in which this pot gets filled. If you multiply that by, you can take an average between 6 and 7, say 6.5, that period of time is approximately equal to 25% of a day or a night cycle. If you multiply that period of time with 4, you get the period of an entire day and the period of an entire night. 1 such quarter is called a yama, and 4 quarters, as I just said, make an entire day or a night cycle on Bhuloka for the humans. So when we reverse engineer all this and look downwards, all units from the Prahara to the Anu and from the Prahara to the Paramanu to Anu, they become perceivable to us at some level, in that we know that these units of time, in terms of the aforementioned Vedic timekeeping devices, water filling activity. Now we go to the macro units of timekeeping. 1 day and 1 night cycle, as described above, forms a day-night cycle known as Aharnisha in Sanskrit. 15 such days and nights will give you a fortnight called a paksha of a month, that is half a month. 2 pakshas, 30 such day-night cycles, gives you a masa or a month. When a month passes on the human world Bhuloka. In another part of the Brahmanda where Pitraloka is located, a celestial world like the earth, where the souls of deceased parents of any living being dwell for a period of time in the body of a Pitra Devata. On that Loka, 1 day and 1 night pass. So when 1 month ends on earth, 1 masa ends on earth, 1 day and 1 night end on Pitraloka. Months forms a Ritu. 6 months, 6 masas forms an Ayana. We have 2 Ayanas in the year, Uttarayana, Dakshinayana. And 2 of those Ayanas is equal to 1 human year. And then we come from here into the realm of cosmic time units. 432,000 such human years is the length of Kali Yuga. If you double that, 864,000 human years is the length of a Dwapara Yuga. If you triple Kali Yuga, 1,296,000 human years gives you the length of Treta Yuga, when the Ramayana took place, at the end of which Ramayana took place. And if you quadruple, multiply by 4 Kali Yuga, 1,728,000 human years is the period of Krita Yuga. And it is within Dwapara Yuga of the current Manvantara's 28th Mahayuga cycle that the Mahabharata took place. The sum of all 4 yugas makes a Mahayuga, and 1000 Mahayugas is just 1 day time for Brahma. And again, 1 night time for Brahma would be another such length of time. Now Brahma divides each one of his days into 14 portions. Each portion is presided by a presiding Deva called a Manu. And each of those 14 sections of Brahma's 1 day time is called a Manvantara. Now as we can see, a day of Brahma is a cosmic gargantua in comparison to a human day. The day of the Devas in Indra's own home world of Swarga is equal to just 1 human year on our world of Bhuloka. Now, where does all this add up for you and me as Hindus at a very perceivable level? Observe next time before pujas and havans, a series of Vedic timekeeping coordinates are ritually recited as follows. Adya Brahmanaha Dvitiye Parardhe Shvetaha Paraha Kalpe Vaivasvata Manvantare Ashtavinshati Kaliyuge Pratame Pade Jambudvipe Bharata Varshe Bharata Kande Viroho Dakshine Parshve. This basically is referring to which day of Brahma you are in. That is Adya Brahmanaha. Adya Brahmanaha refers to the present Brahma. Remember, Brahma, like us, is a Jivatman. He has a birth and a death. And once he dies, the new Brahma takes his place. That's how it works. We will be seeing all that in detail in Mahabharata. But this is just to give you an idea of how the cosmos works. The present Brahma's Dvitiye Parardhe, the second half of the present Brahma's life is what's ongoing. Shveta Varaha Kalpe, this day of Brahma, this Kalpa of Brahma is known as Shveta Varaha Kalpa. Within that Shveta Varaha Kalpa, of the 14 Manvantaras, we are in the 7th Manvantara known as Vaivasvata Manvantara. The Manu of this period is known as Vaivasvata Manu, Sri Rama's ancestor. Within the Vaivasvata Manvantara, which Mahayuga cycle are we in? Because the Vaivasvata Manvantara has approximately 71.3 Mahayugas in it. Which Mahayuga cycle are we in? The 28th, Ashtavimshati Tame, the 28th Mahayuga cycle. And inside that Mahayuga cycle, we are in Kali Yuga's Pratame Pade, first quarter. Where are we located? In a land called Jambudvipa, in Bharatavarsha, Bharatakhanda, southwards of a mountain known as Meru, whose location today is lost. Meru Parvata itself is said to have disappeared. Again, it's part of Shriman Narayana's Leela. And within this time and these geographical coordinates on this Shubha Tithi, when we perform a ritual, we recite this entire geographical timekeeping coordinates tied to the cosmic creation itself. This is how accurately we describe time itself before every Shubha Tithi of a ritual. Note that the time between every yuga, every manvantara and every kalpa and every loka will comprise of an intermediary period known as sandhi. The sandhi's period of time is unfortunately not clearly known to us and it varies. And like many aspects of our shastras are lost in time today, the knowledge of how long exactly yuga sandhis are is also lost. So to summarize what we have seen thus far, time is a form of Shriman Narayana himself and is driven by him, as it is in a cosmic sense his own bodily manifestation. At the end of every 4 yugas, the earth sees a great pralaya, a geographic destruction cycle where the continents and the seas, they get destroyed, the seas will spill over, they will wash life clean and life will start anew. But at the end of every manvantara, 71.3 mahayugas, you will have a very grand pralaya that affects several lokas, including various devalokas. Many devas also die at the end of a manvantara, and many devas also don't die at the end of a manvantara. So pralayas affect various lokas in various forms. It's nothing like a pralaya affects only bhuloka or the pralaya affects only the entire universe all the time as a whole. Various kinds of pralayas exist which affect various lokas in various ways. At the end of the kalpa of Brahma goes to sleep and the created universes, they disintegrate into rudimentary material state and they sink into a great cosmic ocean called Pralaya Samudra. Now the said kalpa can be of two types. One type of kalpa is one where Brahma merely goes to sleep and he will wake up the next day. In this case, the created realms merely sink into the great cosmic ocean called Pralaya Samudra. But if the kalpa in question happens to be the last day of Brahma's life and Brahma is going to pass away and another Brahma is going to take his place, the Vishnu Purana very clearly says that all realms will entirely disintegrate into their pre-material guna states, sink into a minuscule, near dimensionless state. Both space and time, Kala Swarupa of Shriman Narayana, will sink into a minuscule, point-sized, dimensionless state back into Shriman Narayana's body until this entire cycle of creation begins anew and he appoints a new Brahma to start creation itself. Now that we have seen Vedic timekeeping, let's go further and see a few points on other forms of timekeeping that we have known thus far. Why is the modern Julio-Gregorian calendar inaccurate before the Vedic Panchanga? Now a few words on the modern Western Julio-Gregorian calendar and how it compares to our Vedic Panchanga. Now this calendar was created on the whims and fancies of various Roman rulers initially, and the Roman Senate would at a whim extend or contract years to fit their political timekeeping narratives. This made every festival and every religious event vary randomly between 2 years. Julius Caesar played around with this calendar and so did multiple popes. This calendar's years actually started in the time of March, a time when the Zoroastrians of Iran, Armenia and Central Asia celebrate their new year even today, Nowruz. Roman soldiers in pagan times adopted the Zoroastrian practice of New Year in March, and they also started celebrating the beginning of their years in March. After multiple political revisions of the calendar over many centuries, Pope Gregory XIII created yet again the basis for the calendar which we follow today, and added on top of this, the British played around with this calendar a little more and we ended up with the modern day calendar we have today. Does any of this seem even logical? It was all concocted on the whims and fancies of people and it lacked even a logical consistency, let alone any scientific basis whatsoever. The Dharmic calendar has never changed, on the other hand. It has always remained the exact same thing in its approach and rationale, and it will remain the exact same as Bhagavan Shriman Narayana intended it. He intended humans to keep time and reckoning of years in a certain way, and it has been followed in the exact same way down to our times today. So our timekeeping is thus connected to Shriman Narayana's creation cycles and the cosmos directly, rather than being associated with the birth or death of some mortal person on this earth. Thus we see how timekeeping in Sanatana Dharma has worked throughout the ages, how time has been kept, how years have been reckoned, and finally how our timekeeping has been not only scientific but also logically consistent and above all spiritually meritorious. As always, I would like to share some pictures with you of the famous Goshala located in Kerala by the name of Dakshin Vrindavan. They are doing an amazing job at rescuing cattle bound to slaughterhouses, and I have been donating to this Goshala for a few years now. A big shout out to all our viewers to visit Dakshin Vrindavan's website, whose link is also given in the description, and to help their cows and their bulls. Service to the Govamsha is service to Shri and Narayana, to the Almighty Paramatma himself, and it's one of the easiest ways to cleanse ourselves of infinitely many lifetimes of sins and move closer to Shri and Narayana in Paravaikuntha. Srimate Narayanaya Namo.